Right, time to talk sport. Adam Hawes joining us from Fox Sports News. Very good afternoon to you, Adam. And Australia is making a bid for the Soccer World Cup again. Tell me about this. Why is there an expectation we might do better this time?
Yeah, very exciting news, David, isn't it? I know Paul is very happy to hear this, that Australia are going to link up with Indonesia, or they've started talks at least, to co-host the 2034 Football World Cup. Talks have been going on for a few months now, as recently as last week in Laos, in fact, to host this tournament. It's a long way off. It's a bit of a long shot. And certainly we have been burned in the past. I don't need to remind anyone of that when we got just the one vote a few years back before it went to Qatar. So there's a lot of water to go under the bridge before this one. But, yeah, some talks underway.
This is a disgrace. Look, if we win it, fine. Taxpayers can build the stadiums and do everything that needs to be done. $45 million was spent last time around into that interesting organisation called FIFA. We shouldn't be going around doing this. I think that, again,
if the sports... their act? I mean, is that clear now after all that went on?
Well, I wouldn't think enough to pump another 45 in. But here's the reason why it's difficult for us to bid for a Football World Cup. Time zones. Right now, it's almost 9 o'clock in the morning in London. It would mean that games would be being played. If it's night time in Australia, it's going to be the middle of the day over there. If it's going to be very early in the morning, no one's going to turn up to them here in Australia to fit European time zones. That's the problem. The other thing too is that technically the MCG wouldn't qualify as a place where you'd be able to play a World Cup game, because they have to be flat surfaces. They don't necessarily have to be rectangular stadiums, but the surfaces themselves are not up to scratch. So, good luck.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I think the Indonesia partnership
it's a long way.
It's going to be a much bigger global player, I'm sure, by 2034. So maybe there's a bit more influence there. We'll see. Now, this is the really interesting sport story today, Adam, and that's the NRL and concerns about concussion with these rather alarming findings.
Yeah, researchers, doctors have found evidence of CTE in the brains of two deceased former rugby league players. They played over 150 games. Their identities aren't known, but certainly is alarming. And I guess it justifies the overhaul the NRL's put into the game and its concussion protocols in recent times. When these players would have played, it was a mindset of just get back out there. If you took a head knock, you'll be okay. You play the next week. Now you've got to, if you're knocked out, you're off, and you sometimes don't come back the next week. Luke Keary from the Roosters, for example, he's been missing for 6 weeks. Now, this CTE is obviously well known with the NFL. It was the subject of that hit movie Concussion a few years back with Will Smith that really put it into the public spotlight. And in fact, rugby league great Peter Sterling today has said that he's going to donate his brain for research purposes as well.
Wow. You know, I mean, what's interesting too is, as you know, the design nature of rugby league is you're running at each other, right? So it's a car crash. But it's the 10-metre rule, which means you get more speed and you hit harder. Is there a conversation about going back to the 5-metre distance when the ball's being played? Because the 10 metres means you're running harder at each other. Does that mean your brains are knocking in harder? Peter Sterling played in the 5-metre era.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know if headgear makes much of a difference here either. You know, you look at the NFL and so on and what they do there. But look, and you see some wear the headgear, but I don't know. Is there much research on that, Adam?
Well, it obviously makes some difference, but it won't overall. I think what they're trying to eradicate is the repeat concussions, where they just keep playing and playing and playing. At least they've eradicated that. But as Paul says, you're never going to get rid of it. It's a physical contact sport.
You can wear a helmet with spikes. Your brain still hits the back of the skull. Front of the skull, I should say. I'm not a doctor.
We got to go on that unpleasant note. Thanks, Adam. More on Fox Sports News. Paul Murray live tonight, 9 o'clock. We'll see you then. Thanks for your company this afternoon as well.
Let's get a check of what's happening in the sporting world now. Kath Lochnan joins me. And Kath, a pretty worrying story has emerged regarding rugby league players.
Yeah, concussion protocols in the NRL and junior competitions are set to come under scrutiny after evidence of CTE was found in the brains of two deceased rugby league players. Now, both players, who remain nameless, had played more than 150 first-grade games. CTE is a disease more commonly associated with the NFL and comes as a result of repeated head trauma. The findings related to the two first-grade players were published And the author, Professor Michael Buckland, says, "We hope the first proof of CTE in rugby league inspires the Australian scientific community to mobilise in the fight against CTE and advances the conversation on reforms to sport that can prevent this disease."